Once upon a time, there was a beautiful princess and a charming prince. They were about to get married when a dragon burned down their palace and kidnapped, surprise, the prince. The princess, whose all her belongings were burnt, remained with no clothes to wear, put on a paper bag, and set out to rescue the prince. When she reached the dragon's cave, she cunningly overcame him. She entered the cave to save the prince. But then he said to her, "Elizabeth, you are a mess. Your hair smells like ashes, and you're wearing a dirty old paper bag." What a way to show gratitude. "Come back when you're dressed like a real princess." And this is her reaction and the last page of the book. "Ronald, your hair is nice. You look like a prince, but you are a bum." And they didn't get married after all. I've just told you the gist of the Paperbag Princess, written in 1978 by Robert Munsch. Why does this story surprise us? Let me show you why. How many of you heard as children stories about a prince who saves a princess? Please raise your hand. Ooh, most of you clearly did. But how many of you heard as children stories about a princess who saves a prince? Please raise your hand. Quite a difference. Children's literature is perceived as a world of fantasy and imagination, detached from reality. Well, it isn't. In fact, stories reflect reality and in turn influence the present and the future. According to the writer Cornelia Funke, stories never really end, even if the books like to pretend they do. Stories always go on. They don't end on the last page any more than they begin on the first page. Children's books hide implicit yet strong messages between their pages about who our children are supposed to be as girls and boys, as men and women. When conveying stereotypical messages to the developing mind of children, we narrow and limit the spectrum of possibilities according to their gender. And that creates a gender-biased reality. But by raising awareness to these messages, and I'll show you how to do that, we can challenge the biased patterns of thinking and then create a more equal and diverse society for our children to live in. To this mission, I have devoted my personal and professional life. Years ago, I established an organization leading the field of gender and education in young ages in Israel. I had the privilege of guiding thousands of parents and educators and hundreds of kindergartens on the road to equality. I'll never forget the first time I shared the Paperbag Princess with a kindergarten that I worked with. The teacher read the story to the children and then asked them one simple question. What was the part of the story you liked best? I never expected to hear the answers the children gave. About 40% of the boys said that they liked the part where the prince killed the dragon and saved the princess. I've told you the whole story so you can understand that this didn't happen in this story. And that wasn't all. About 30% of the girls said that they liked the part where the prince and the princess got married. Shocked, I ran outside to try to understand what had just happened. The kindergarten teacher ran after me. I swear to you, those kids are intelligent. I know they are very intelligent, so what happened? I decided to repeat this experiment in several kindergartens, and surprise, surprise, the same answers repeated themselves. And then the penny dropped. I understood that stereotypical patterns of thinking about gender roles are so prevalent and so powerful that they just blocked the children from hearing the story the way it was told. Think about the messages delivered to girls in most of the classic fairy tales. The princess is usually extremely thin, white skin, blue eyes, blonde, just like me. And of course, she is in danger and helpless and can't be saved by herself or by another loving princess. But, of course, can only be saved by a handsome prince. True, we have Frozen, Elsa and Anna, Brave, and Moana, all of them a bit more advanced, but they are only a drop in the ocean. Usually, the female character is kind, compassionate, and caring, never leads nor initiates, and almost always following Prince Charming instead of following her heart. Equally disturbing are the messages boys receive from these stories. They understand that they must lead, they must be smart and brave, they are not allowed to be tender or vulnerable, and that every time they face difficulty, they can't ask for help or hesitate. There is only one legitimate solution: kill the dragon. So you might be thinking, okay, there are gender-biased messages in fairy tales, but they're only a small part of all children's stories. In fact, gender-biased messages exist in almost every story. Most of the time, they are implicit and subliminal, and we are not conscious of them. But their effects live on long after the book has been closed. Take, for example, a book that is read all over the world, Pretzel. How much I loved this book as a child, and so did my daughters. Pretzel is a dachshund dog who loves Greta, the little dachshund from across the street, and wants to marry her. But she doesn't care for long dogs and rejects his courtship. He expresses his desire again and again in her ears, but time after time she answers, no. I guess he never heard about consent. So despite her repeated refusals, he follows her everywhere and get lucky. Greta falls into a pit and Pretzel saves her. She immediately falls in love with him and they get married and bark happily ever after. And here you have the answer why girls and boys could not understand that the Paperbag Princess said no to the prince, that she did not get married, that she was brave enough to follow her heart and did not surrender to what was expected of her as part of a stereotypical template. And what about the name of the book? Although Greta has a major part in the story, it was titled Pretzel. Indeed, we see more books about male heroes than female heroes. And it's not just a literary decision, it conveys a message. For example, how many books about lions do you know? And how many about lionesses? And when I say books about lionesses, I don't mean the lioness as the mother of, the spouse of, or the child of, but when the lioness is the hero. Or should I say, shero? Woo. If you go to Amazon and look for books with the title Lion, you will get more than 20,000 results. A parallel search on the word lioness will give you 450 results, about 2%. By the way, in Hebrew, I counted 15 children's books in which there is a lion starring as the main character. And how many other with a lioness as a main character? One. I wrote it. So you see, whether it's in the name of the book, the main character, the gender roles, the body image, hidden bias messages exist in our children's books. These messages do not stay inside the stories. They become our society. So what can we do? Parents and educators constantly ask me. Looking for a simple tool to assist in recognizing these hidden biased messages, I've created the Equal Literature Index. If you want to know what are the messages your child receives from a specific book, from a gender and diversity point of view, ask yourself these 4 questions. 1, how many heroic characters in the book are males and how many females? 2, apron and briefcase. Do the roles and behaviors of the characters match the stereotype or challenge it? 3, body image. Is the body image of the character stereotypical, or does it challenge the stereotype in terms of clothing, skin tone, diverse body build, etc.? 4, full spectrum. Is there only one ideal model that excludes all others, or are the models diverse in terms of sexual orientation, race, special needs, and so on? After the hidden messages in stories are less hidden and we are more aware of them, we can make a more educated personal decision about which books to read as is, which should be mediated and encourage critical thinking in their context, and which you would prefer to totally skip. It's in our hands to decide. Nowadays, the Equal Literature Index is changing the reality far beyond all my expectations and hopes. Editors, publishers, and writers use the index as a guideline. It is being taught in universities and schools. The index is being widely used by parents and educators, choosing and mediating books in its light. And more children choose to read equal literature books. And then, magical things happen. Boys learn that they can be compassionate and vulnerable, like the library lion, and that they should respect their partner's wishes, like Zog. Like the Paperbag Princess, girls learn to follow their own heart, to respect themselves and their desires, and their right to say no. They have new models to inspire them. They can lead, like Malala, and resist and protest, like Rosa Parks. Like Marianne Wright Edelman said, "You cannot be what you cannot see, but now girls surely can." To expand this magic, I have established the Equal Literature Facebook group, which was recently chosen by Facebook as one of the top 13 meaningful groups in Israel. Equal literature brings change. I invite you to be part in this change. Remember, just as we parents carefully examine the nutritional value of the food we put into our children's mouth, we should carefully examine what ingredients we use to nourish their mind. Remember, equal literature equals an equal future. So, during your next quality time with your children, make sure it is quality time. Thank you.